You're watching Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO. And now, here's two guys whose April Fool's pranks have left them on the watch list of the local RCMP, Evan and Joe.
I'm Joe Ticotsky down in Connecticut.
I'm Evan McFarlane here in St. Andrews, New Brunswick, where it's finally starting to realize what season it is.
Good to hear. You're watching episode 52 of Mick and T Sports Report, and we will probably retire the snowflake background after this episode until next winter.
We just got a little bit of stuff on the weekend, but I think that's hopefully the end of it. They say poor man's fertilizer at this point. So from a golf perspective, green this place up.
All right. As Mark mentioned in our opening, our April Fool's jokes have landed us in trouble with the RCMP. For my American friends, those are the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. My favorite was the time I told them you were a golf pro who was in trouble on the 10th hole and on the 14th hole and again on the 16th hole. So they had to send someone out to save you from hitting any more tee shots in the Passamaquoddy Bay.
That is fair. That joke gets old really quick. So I'm in a lot of trouble out there usually.
And in New Brunswick headlines, the power couple has gotten married. No, it's not me and Beyonce.
That's next.
It was CHCO station manager Patrick Watt and all everything reporter Vicky Hogarth recently tying the knot in St. Andrews. So we'd like to congratulate them and remind them that since we just publicized their wedding on our show, they need to remember that when it comes time to contract renegotiations.
Those are coming up soon too. I can see a couple extra zeros.
A quick history tidbit. Earlier this month, CHCO-TV celebrated its 30th year on the air. So congrats to the founders, as well as the people that do everything to make it what it is today. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's a big accomplishment. It's nice to be around for a few years of it. Hopefully we can stick around for the next 30.
That's it. So before we head to break, it's time to highlight another local business. And this time we'd like to mention the newly renovated Kennedy House, located at 1218 Water Street in St. Andrews, originally built in 1881. As you know, I've stayed there many times in the past. Shout out to room 207.
Things are going to look a little different when you come, Joe. It looks awesome. We've seen some pictures of the leaked renovations, and I think it's going to be an exciting summer for St. Andrews. There's lots of new restaurants opening up, a few people branching out to do their own thing, and I'm getting the feeling working in the hospitality industry that it's going to be a busy year. I think here it's got that feel to it.
Excellent. Well, the Kennedy House has new owners, and they've, as you mentioned, it's completely renovated the downstairs area and eventually the whole building. So we encourage you to stop in and check it out. And if any of our American audience wants to venture north, which I always keep inviting them to, it's definitely a great place to stay or just grab some food and a beverage of your choice. And after this short break, we will talk to a guy named Speedy, but he's not a track star. And it's not the old cartoon character Speedy Gonzalez. Was that before your time?
No, I know all about Andale.
I thought everything was before your time, but
no, we're good. I'm creeping up there.
We'll be back with that. You're watching Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO. Welcome back to Mick and T Sports Report here on CHCO-TV. Our first guest just completed a successful 17-year career as the women's basketball coach at the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton, the UNB Reds. He has coached over 30 years and has now moved into a full-time role as the university's Associate Director of Athletics. Let's welcome in Jeff Speedy. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Whenever we have a longtime coach on the show, I am always curious, and I like to start out by asking, how did you get into coaching?
Yeah, that's a pretty good story. I was about, 16 years old, and a minor baseball team in the little village of 600 people Florenceville, New Brunswick, where I grew up. Needed a coach. I think the kids were 3 years younger than I was. My dad had coached me in soccer and basketball and baseball growing up. So I thought I knew how to do it. It didn't seem that hard. My dad was doing it. So I coached minor baseball that summer, kind of liked it. Then when I was in university, I started coaching some spring basketball Nova Scotia teams while I was at Acadia. And then getting into coaching seriously in my 4th year at Acadia, the assistant coach of the women's basketball team got a teaching job at the 11th hour, like September 5th or something like that. So the women's basketball team heading into their season had no assistant coach. And a few of the players on the team were in kinesiology with me, knew my love of basketball, knew my love of coaching. So they approached the coach, Laura Sanders, and said, hey, what about having Speedy be our assistant coach? And she called me down to her office the next day for what I thought was a job interview, but she called me in and basically gave me a polo and gave me a sweatshirt and told me when the team was practicing and said, we'll see you tomorrow. And that's how I started. And really enjoyed it that year. And she gave me a great recommendation to get into the National Coaching Institute program in Victoria, BC the next year. And then, it just started 33 years from that point.
That's great. Evan.
Cool how that lines up. Yeah, youth sports, you got to travel a whole bunch around here, typically in the AUS too. You're all over the place. So maybe give us an idea of what your favorite road trip was while you coached at UNB, and maybe one that you would consider your toughest road trip.
Well, the toughest road trip is usually when we play Cape Breton University and St. FX. We kind of do that on the same swing. So we would bus all the way to Sydney on a Thursday afternoon after having a practice, get into Sydney at 10 o'clock at night kind of thing, play Cape Breton on Friday night, and then either make the decision to make the 2.5-hour bus ride after the guys game at 11 o'clock at night to get to Antigonish to play St. FX the next day, or stay overnight in Cape Breton in Sydney, and then take the bus Saturday morning, and then get off the bus in Antigonish and play them. So that road trip was always a grind. The weather's usually not that great in Cape Breton. That's, in the winter. So would always take a long time. And it's funny, I just drove to Cape Breton for nationals this last weekend and did it in the daytime and in the daylight. And there's some pretty parts to that drive, but doing it on a bus in the middle of the night, you don't see much except the ice on the road. So that was the worst trip by far. 2 tough gyms to play in as well. Mm-hmm. The best trip, going to Halifax just seems like it's easy. And when you have 2 games in Halifax, either it's New and Dal or both against the same opponent, that's always an easy trip. I went to Acadia University. I met my wife at Acadia. My son went to Acadia before transferring to UNB. So I always loved going and playing there. But that wasn't an easy drive. It was, it's 45 minutes further down the road than Halifax, and the team's always successful. So it's a tough place to play. But, from an emotional standpoint, I love playing in that gym. It's a great gym, and there's some sentimental attachments to that gym for me. But certainly heading down to Halifax was the easiest trip of all.
Okay. Cool. Now, you had mentioned a story to me before about your son and daughter both being in the playoffs while you were coaching.
So in New Brunswick, the goal of every high school team is to get to Harbour Station. And Harbour Station is, I think they just changed the name like 2 days ago, but I don't even know what the new name is. But Harbour Station in St. John is where they have the 1A, 2A, and 3A provincial finals, girls and boys. So my daughter's team went on an improbable run when she was in grade 11 and made it to the final. And my son's team was one of the best teams in the province in his grade 12 year, and they also made it to the final. And I didn't see either one because we were playing games the same weekend. And I remember watching my son's provincial final on my phone on the bus coming back from Antigonish. And I can't remember where I was it's like everything else with your children, right? You have 1,000 pictures of your first child and 25 of your second. I remember exactly where I was watching Brett's team lose the provincial final. I can't remember where I was when Kylie's team played. Now, I think our team would have been playing at the exact same time as Kylie because the games are are 6 and 8. And so Brett's I was able to watch on the bus after our game, but Kylie's I literally think we were playing somewhere at the exact same time. So student athletes make a lot of sacrifices to play university sports. You know, they can't go out and socialize as much. They don't see their family and friends as much. And we coaches make sacrifices sometimes too. And not getting to see both kids play in their provincial final was pretty tough. But, you know, that's the way it goes sometimes. The pluses outweigh the minuses, but there were some tough days for sure.
And the refs were wondering why you kept reaching into your pocket to check your phone while the game was going.
Actually, I believe I had an assistant coach doing that and whispering the score to me every now and then. The other time that happened to me a lot, I'm a huge Red Sox fan. And when they won their first World Series in 2004, well, first in 100 and whatever years, we were playing, I was coaching the University of Regina at the time, and we were playing down in Montana. And it was the game that they beat the Angels to get to the World Series, I believe it was. And the game, I think, went into extra innings, or the Sox had a huge lead and the other team came back. I'm pretty sure it went into extra innings. And the sports information director at whatever school we were playing at in Montana knew I was a huge Red Sox fan. And he kept coming up to the bench at the end of every inning and telling me the score all throughout the game. And then I remember the team was on the bus getting ready for a 10-hour bus ride back to Regina. And I was in the sports information director's office watching the extra innings on TV and made the bus wait. So yeah, sports is a big part of my life. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do.
Sure. Evan.
Sure. I mean, Speedy, you've been at UNB for quite a while. And I think for a lot of people, when they think of the basketball programs there, you're kind of what pops into their head first. But what kind of entered into your decision to maybe step back from coaching, and what do you think you're going to miss the most when it comes to next season? Yeah,
Evan, I've been at UNB so long that you didn't even have gray hair when you were here.
I don't know.
Yeah, what went into the decision? Well, you can't coach forever, and I'll answer the question a little differently first. What I'm not going to miss at all is recruiting. The bus trips weren't a lot of fun as I got older, but you know, they're manageable. Recruiting is what I'm going to miss the least. So I think the grind with recruiting the last, 3, 4, 5 years has really started to wear on me. So that got me thinking about, you know, if I did something else in athletics, I wouldn't have to recruit. So that would be positive. I would like to have coached 2, 3 more years, to be honest with you. But this job that came open to be the associate director of athletics was too good of an opportunity to pass up. I knew if I passed it up, they would hire somebody else really good, and that person would do the job for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So when I was ready to finally stop coaching in 2 or 3 years, I wouldn't have this opportunity to go to. So, you know, I kind of weighed the pros and cons and realized that this was too good of an opportunity to pass up, so I better do it. What I'll miss the most, it's not even close to what that is, and that's the relationship with my players. I say all the time that my players are like 13 or 14 daughters to me, and I get really close to my players. You know, I get sent baby pictures all the time. I get wedding invitations all the time to the players that I coach that have graduated. So I'm just going to miss those relationships. And I have a lot of great relationships from players all across the country that I've coached for 30 years. And those relationships won't go away when I stop coaching, but I guess the opportunity to, you know, make new relationships. We have 2 committed recruits right now, Addie Mombriquette from here in town and Lillian Fuller from Halifax. And I have a great relationship with both of those young women already. And it's kind of sad that I'm not going to get to coach them for 5 years and have an even better relationship when they graduate. So that's what I'll miss the most for sure, is that relationship with some really quality, you know, young women, student athletes that are very special.
Right. Well, you've had an amazing career. He is Jeff Speedy, former women's basketball coach of the UNB Reds. And for you Americans, that's the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton. He will now be the full-time associate director of athletics at the school. Jeff, congrats on a great coaching career, and best of luck with the job. And thanks for being on the show.
My pleasure. It was fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Speedy.
Well, coming up next on Small Town Spotlight, we channel our inner Dr. Doolittle and head to a fascinating zoo in Manitoba. You're watching Mick and T Sports Report on CHCO-TV. Welcome back to Mick and T Sports Report here on CHCO. It's time for Small Town Spotlight as we head to the province of Manitoba. But with a population of 750,000, Winnipeg is certainly no small town. But when we heard about the amazing Assiniboine Park Conservancy, we, meaning I, felt the need to break the small town rule this one time. Officially opened in 1909, it includes a forest, a zoo, a sculpture garden, a miniature railway, an outdoor theater, and much, much more. And there's also the famous Winnie the Pooh statue. And for those who didn't know, Winnie was a real-life bear from northern Ontario and was named after the city of Winnipeg. And to tell us more, let's welcome in Laura Cabak, Director of Communications and Public Relations for the Assiniboine Park Conservancy. Laura, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
You were born and raised on a grain farm near Neepawa, a small town in rural Manitoba. How long have you lived in Winnipeg, and how long have you worked for the Conservancy?
Yeah, so you're correct. I was born near Neepawa, and my parents and grandparents before them were farmers. Neepawa is kind of smack dab in the middle of Manitoba. And like a lot of kids, I left my small town to go to university. So I came to Winnipeg and attended the University of Manitoba, and I've been here ever since. So I've lived in Winnipeg for about 30 years, raised my family here, and I started working for the Assiniboine Park Conservancy in 2011. So it's been just over a decade. And in that time, Assiniboine Park, which is sort of the signature urban park in Winnipeg, has really seen a very significant transformation, and it's been an exciting place to work and be part of that.
Yeah, sounds it. Now, I was looking online at some of the animals at the zoo, and I saw there's an exhibit called Toucan Ridge, which immediately made me think of Fruit Loop cereal, but I digress there. Tell us about some of the animals we'd see at the zoo, and don't forget to include my favorites, my new favorites, the Percheron horses at the McFeeder's Heavy Horse Center.
So Assiniboine Park Zoo is actually the oldest zoological organization in Canada. So it's been here for over a century. And over the past 10 years, it's really seen a transformation as we modernized the zoo and revitalized it. Like a lot of city-run zoos, it needs a lot of care and attention and investment to be maintained. And that was difficult for the city to do alone. So our organization was created to help that along and attract private investment. So today the zoo is home to about 150 species from around the world, but we really do focus on species that are native to Canada and Manitoba in particular. The Toucan Ridge is a lovely tropical house that has animals from Central and South America. And the McFeeder's Heavy Horse Center that you mentioned is home to Percheron horses. And right now we have 4 of them. Their names are Bob, Tom, Rival, and Flame. And I think you are very correct in saying that those are a favorite. They're a favorite of mine. They're big, beautiful, gentle giants, just gorgeous, gorgeous animals. And I think for some of us who maybe were brought up in rural areas, they're a little reminder of rural farm life. But we're also very well known for our Journey to Churchill exhibit, which has polar bears, musk oxen, Arctic fox, snowy owls, and seals, and is probably the signature exhibit here at Assiniboine Park Zoo.
Nice. Now, you're quite proud of this new place called The Leaf, which opened just in December. Tell us about it.
So in this redevelopment of the entire park, we started in the heart of the park by improving some of the visitor amenities. Then we moved over to the zoo, which was really focused on modernizing that experience and adding in dedicated functions around conservation and research. And then we moved from the animal kingdom over to the life-sustaining world of plants with this new place called The Leaf. The Leaf is probably the most significant horticultural development to take place in Canada in a couple of generations. It consists of 30 acres of new gardens and green space. That's public gardens open to the public year-round. and this really amazing new building called the Leaf. And the Leaf just opened in December. It's home to 4 indoor biomes. So there's a tropical biome, a Mediterranean biome, a display area, which changes 4 or 5 times a year, and an elevated butterfly garden that actually overlooks the tropical biome. It just opened in December. The response has been really, really amazing. People are very excited to come and see it, not just Winnipeggers and Manitobans, but people around the world. And I think it's a place that we can be proud of as Winnipeggers and show off to visitors who come to our city.
Yeah, and we will, throughout this interview, will be popping up pictures in the background of various areas that look gorgeous online. Well, switching gears here, as the old marketing saying goes, every place needs fannies in the seats to stay open. So what's your target audience when you market the place?
It's actually really, really broad. And the reason for that is because Assiniboine Park has so much to offer to so many different people. So in addition to the zoo and the Leaf, we also have beautiful outdoor gardens and green space. We have a couple of restaurants, one that sort of offers more casual, breakfast and lunch fare, another that is a little bit more of a high-end dining experience. In the summer, we offer free outdoor concerts and movies in the park. We also have events. We have camps and programs. So really, we're marketing to everyone from families with really young children to older active seniors and retirees who are looking for things to do. It's really vast and broad. We do try to target some of those experiences to more narrowed audiences, but and I think one of the reasons why people love the park so much is there really is something here for everybody who lives in this city and who comes to visit this city.
Yeah, it does. It sounds amazing. And lastly, and I had to ask this before you leave, when the park and the zoo closes for the day and it's empty, totally empty, do you ever just wander around and explore?
Yes and no. So no, I don't go out into the zoo in the middle of the night when it's closed. However, there are occasions where I have to be here late for an event or early for, say, a morning show on a TV station or something like that. So I have been in here at 5 a.m. and it's dark. And I must say it is an interesting experience to be hanging out by, say, a snow leopard habitat with the very distinct feeling that you are being watched. So yes, that is a unique experience. It's also lovely and peaceful in the park and zoo in those wee hours. So it is quite nice, actually, to just sort of have the space to yourself and kind of just be able to appreciate it.
Nice. Well, she is Laura Cabak, Director of Communications and Public Relations for the Assiniboine Park Conservancy, located in lovely Winnipeg, Manitoba. We encourage you to check out their website and social media feeds. And if you're in the area, make it a point to set aside some time for a visit to check out everything they have to offer there. Laura, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're back. Good interview there, and let's kind of check in on what I'm going to call the CTT, which is Classic Ticotsky T-shirts. What do you got going on there, bud?
All right, this time it was a T-shirt for WWOZ, which is a phenomenal radio station from New Orleans. Check them out online at wwoz.org the next time you're having some beignets or a po' boy sandwich. Have you ever been to New Orleans?
I haven't. It's on the list. I've got a bit of anxiety though, so every time I see videos, I get a little bit skittish because it's a little bit busy for my liking. But I do want to try at some point.
It's a city like no other, and I mean that in the most positive way. But from reliable sources, I've been warned to stay away from the hurricanes at Pat O'Brien's, as there may be a little kick in that beverage.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go to the shout outs. I'll start first.
Sure.
A little hometown shout out. The Hamden High School girls basketball team. They just completed an undefeated 27-0 season, ranked #1 in the state. And it was the first basketball state title, boys or girls, in the 88-year history of the school.
Wow.
which is where I graduated, not 88 years ago, but not far off. And I'd especially like to shout out their coach, Amanda Forcucci, who I've known forever. She played AAU basketball for us when she was in high school, and she's now won state titles at 2 different high schools as a head coach. And I can't forget her amazing family, her wife, Jackie, her 2 sons, Johnny and Fitzgerald, and her daughter, Sawyer, who you see dressed there as the Hamden Green Dragon for the state championship game.
Nice. Yeah. Congrats to them. That's no small feat at all. Undefeated seasons are pretty few and far between. So that's very exciting for you guys. Congrats. I'm going to go off on my shout out here. I'm going to keep it to a local kid who's doing some cool stuff in the basketball world too. Past employee and SJDA Algonquin Elias Eldridge just landed himself an internship with the Brampton Honey Badgers of the Canadian Elite Basketball League. So he's going there for the summer. He has aspirations of working in the NBA someday. Smart kid. I know he's probably going to make it, but this is a huge step for him in that direction.
Excellent. And we'll have to find someone else to work the camp with the 5th and 6th graders, because he did a great job with that also.
Yeah, I got a few holes to plug out here at work too.
All right. Well, that is it for episode 52 of Mick and T's Sports Report. I'm Joe in New Haven.
I'm Evan here in New Brunswick.
Thanks to Patrick Watt and Florence Mitchell for producing and editing a show that is now totally written by ChatGPT. That's why it sounds. That's why
use it for everything. It's the best.
All right. So until next time, this is Mick and T's Sports Report on CHCO-TV in St. Andrews.